Hello everybody, I've just been reading this book about kindness. Would you like to hear it? I think it's quite interesting. So, it's about being kind. My mum taught me that everyone has an invisible bucket, and it's a kindness bucket. And when the bucket is full, we are happy. But when it's empty, we can be sad. I like to fill people's buckets. I think being kind is cool. So there's buckets ready, and this friend wants to be kind, so he's going to try and do kind things to fill people's buckets with kindness. So what sort of things are we talking about then? I think being kind is easy. It's doing something nice for someone, or saying something nice to somebody, or even giving someone a hug when they need it. Obviously, in these times, they'd have to be in your bubble. But look, there he is being kind, and every little act of kindness fills the buckets up a little bit, even though we can't see the buckets. I think being kind is thinking about how other people feel. So I try to put myself in their shoes. Not absolutely really in their shoes, but just imagine what it's like to be them. Like when I knew my friend was worried about our sleepover, I stayed awake talking until I knew she was asleep. So she was a little bit worried about being away from home, and they were talking until she fell fast asleep, and then the friend knew that they could go to sleep. Or when my friend was embarrassed about wearing the wrong thing on Wear Your Own Clothes Day, so I gave her my jumper. Or when my mum slept in and I got myself ready for school. Those are all helpful things, but they're acts of kindness as well. And that's a really nice thing to do, so that fills everybody's buckets up a little bit more. I think being kind is thinking about people you don't know too. Some people don't have as much as I do, so there you can see this little friend is giving some of his toys away, or her toys away, to children who perhaps don't have enough toys. Some that they don't play with anymore maybe. I bet you've got lots of toys at your house that you don't play with. Maybe you could think about swapping them with your friends. Like we do at school when sometimes we bring books in. And there you can see he's really happy. I like to be kind and it makes me feel happy. So actually being kind fills your own bucket up as well, and it makes you happy. I'm feeling really good at the moment because I've done a few kind things, and that makes me feel really happy. So you have a think about what kind of things you can do and see if you can guess who's reading this story. Bye for now.
Mrs. Pepperpot had the delightful habit of shrinking to the size of a pepper pot at all sorts of awkward moments. In this new book, she excels herself by shrinking 5 times in one day and collecting a house full of animals into the bargain. A very funny book for everyone.
Ish by Peter H. Reynolds. Raymond loves to draw, especially when he learns that he doesn't have to worry about getting it just right. He does ish drawings, ish writing, and he ends up living ishly ever after.
A koala who could. In a wonderful place at the breaking of dawn, where the breezes were soft and the sunshine was warm, a place where the creatures run wild and played free, a koala called Kevin clung to a tree. A nicer grey fellow you never would meet, as soft as a soft thing from ear tufts to feet. His favourite way to relax in the sun was to cling and to nap and to munch a leaf bun. He was terribly good at all these 3 things. Yes, Kevin was king of the Staying Still Kings. You see, high up was safe since he liked a slow pace, while the ground down below seemed a frightening place. Too fast and too loud and too big and too strange. Nope, Kevin preferred not to move nor to change. So he clung to his tree as he knew what to do, and was never too keen to try anything new. So when Wombat stopped by and shouted one day, "Hey Kevin, why don't you come down here and play?" I think," he replied, "I should stay on my plant. I'm busy right now. No, I'm sorry, I can't." "Why not?" cried the Roos, who liked the idea. "Yes, why?" called the Dingoes. "You've nothing to fear." But Kevin, who wasn't the do things quick sort, said, "I've clinging to do, but thanks for the thought." As Kevin sat watching them chatter and share, a part of him wished he could join them down there. But he knew he'd miss home in the dark and the late. The whole thing was risky, adventure could wait. Whatever the invite, he'd always say no. Oh dear, it seemed Kevin just couldn't let go. So his life was the same, no matter the day. The weeks came and went, and the months rolled away, and Kevin stayed still while the world moved around, until he awoke to a worrying sound. Tap, tap, the sound went. Well, this was a blow. Tap, tappity, tap, 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 tap. Oh no! Uncling, the crowd called, as they gathered below. Leap and we'll catch you, just let yourself go. But Kevin was scared. Let go, no I shan't. I won't, clung on Kevin. Oh dear, I just can't. Whoomph! Down came the tree with a cracking and a pinging. Crash and a wallop, with Kevin still clinging. Kevin, he carefully opened one eye and looked up at the love staring down from the sky. Then one claw by one claw he slowly unclung. He felt springy and light and happy and young. The worst he could think of had now come to pass, and he was just fine, why he felt quite first class. So when Wombat held out a most welcoming paw, Kevin, he didn't look back any more. When Dingo said, "Now will you come out to play?" the crowd all joined in with a "What do you say?" And even though this wasn't part of his plan, Kevin replied, "Yes, I think that I can." And Kevin, from then on, was always can do. Because life can be great when you try something new.
The Tiger Who Came to Tea. Once there was a little girl called Sophie, and she was having tea with her mummy in the kitchen. Suddenly, there was a ring at the door. Sophie's mummy said, "I wonder who that can be. It can't be the milkman because he came this morning. And it can't be the boy from the grocer because this isn't the day he comes. And it can't be Daddy because he's got his key. We'd better open the door and see." Sophie opened the door, and there was a big, furry, stripy tiger. The tiger said, "Excuse me, but I'm very hungry. Do you think I could have tea with you?" Sophie's mummy said, "Of course, come in." So the tiger came into the kitchen and sat down at the table. Sophie's mummy said, "Would you like a sandwich?" But the tiger didn't just take one sandwich, he took all the sandwiches on the plate and swallowed them in one big mouthful. Oh. And he still looked hungry, so Sophie passed him the buns. But again, the tiger didn't just eat one bun, he ate all the buns on the dish. And then he ate all the biscuits and all the cake until there was nothing left on the table. So Sophie's mummy said, "Would you like a drink?" And the tiger drank all the milk in the milk jug and all the tea in the teapot. And then he looked round the kitchen to see what else he could find. He ate all the supper that was cooking in the saucepans, and all the food in the fridge, and all the packets and tins in the cupboard, and he drank all the milk, and all the orange juice, and all Daddy's beer, and all the water in the tap. Then he said, "Thank you for my nice tea. I think I'd better go now." And he went. Sophie's mummy said, "I don't know what to do. I've got nothing for Daddy's supper. The tiger's eaten it all." And Sophie found she couldn't have her bath because the tiger had drunk all the water in the tap. Just then, Sophie's daddy came home. So Sophie and her mummy told him what had happened and how the tiger had eaten all the food and drunk all the drink. And Sophie's daddy said, "I know what we'll do. I've got a very good idea. We'll put on our coats and go to a cafe." So they went out in the dark, and all the street lamps were lit, and all the cars had their lights on, and they walked down the road to a cafe. And they had a lovely supper with sausages and chips and ice cream. In the morning, Sophie and her mummy went shopping, and they bought lots more things to eat. And they also bought a very big tin of tiger food, in case the tiger should come to tea again. But he never did.
The cave. There is a cave that is home to a little creature that never leaves its cave because of a wolf. "Why don't you come out to play, little creature?" asks the wolf. "I'm sure we'd be very good friends." "No, thank you," replies the little creature. "I already have 2 friends." So the little creature stays home. The wolf comes back day after day. "Why don't you come out to play, little creature?" asks the wolf. "I bet you're so bored in there all cooped up in your cave." "No, thank you," replies the little creature. "Only boring creatures get bored." So the little creature stays home. The wolf never leaves, not even to go to sleep. But the little creature never comes out. It doesn't want to climb a tree or play ball or pick flowers, and it definitely doesn't want to feed the birds. "Why don't you come out to play, little creature?" asks the wolf eventually. "I'm getting hungry now. You must be getting hungry now." The little creature sniffs. "Now you mention it, I am a little hungry." "Well," says the wolf, "I have the most tasty donut here with your name on it. Why don't you come and get it?" "Does it have sprinkles?" the little creature asks. "Yes," shouts the wolf. And with a stretch and a shuffle, the little creature comes out to play. "I do love donuts," says the bear, "but I'm still a little hungry." "Why don't you come out to play, little creature?" asks the bear. "I'm sure we'd be very good friends." Hope you enjoyed it.
This story is called The Railway Children, and it's set in Keighley in West Yorkshire. There were 3 children, Bobby, Peter and Phyllis. They had everything they could possibly want: toys, clothes, food, and a loving mother and father. But this happened a long time ago in Edwardian England, and things weren't so good in those days. After the birthday tea, the doorbell rang, and 2 sharply dressed men spoke to their dad, and then he left with them. "Where's he gone?" said Peter, quite upset. "He hasn't even packed his clothes, and I've not even said goodbye to him." "He had so quickly to leave, it was business," said Mum. "Don't worry, go brush your teeth, and it's bedtime." But from that day, things began to change for the family. The next few weeks, all the furniture was sold off, and then Mum sat them down and said, "We're going to have to be poor for a while, just until things are sorted out. We're going to go and move to a nice house in the country." They arrived at their new house that week. "Let's explore," said Peter. Mum looked troubled a lot of the time. She no longer had her friends around, and the servant that helped cook their tea had been dismissed the night before. Early that morning, they raced the 3 children along the garden, down the hillside, towards the railway track. They could see the steam billowing out of the tunnel. They tumbled along. Woo! Woo! Said the train. It looks like a dragon, said Peter. Look, they can see the fire there bellowing out of the engine. Perhaps it's going to London, said Phyllis. I know. Let's wave our handkerchiefs. Father might be on it. Anyway, it'll send him good messages. So they took out their handkerchiefs and began waving. Out of the first-class window, an old gentleman in a top hat waved back at them. He looked kind and smiley. Send our love to Father, they shouted at the top of their voices. Let's do something different, said Peter. Let's go down the track. The train's not coming. We'll be able to tell because the tracks will be rumbling. But when they reached the path, suddenly the earth began to move and the trees began to slide down the side of the hill. Quick, quick, he said. Let's take some shelter. But before they had time to run away, a huge tree had crashed down on the branches. Oh no, the 11:29 train's due. We're going to have to stop them. How are we going to stop a train? Said his older sister. Come on, let's go and see if we can get to the beginning of the track. So they raced up the hill. We should wave something like they do when there's a danger. Well, red means danger. Have you got anything red? All they had was a red petticoat, which they took off, tied on some sticks, and waved frantically. They could feel the tracks of the train vibrating and they knew it was close, and smoke started billowing out of the tunnel. Stop! Stop! They cried. With a squeal of the brakes, the engine shuddered. There was a hiss of steam. Peter pointed to the landslide. All the trees have fallen down on the track. You can't get through. The railway company heard about what had happened a few days later, and they held a celebration for the children. There was a brass band, bunting and buns, and everybody who was anybody came out. The railway director gave them a gold watch each and a bag of gold coins. And there was the old man from the train, still wearing his top hat, looking very distinguished. Do you want to come back to our house for tea? I'm sure Mum would like to see you. Well, at home, Bobby took the old gentleman's coat. She glanced at the newspaper. There's a picture of Dad on the front page. Spy trial. Guilty. 5 years in jail. My daddy's not a spy. Bobby ran to the bedroom and hid her tears under her cover. Mum didn't want us to know. She didn't want us to worry. After tea, when the old gentleman had gone, Mum came to find them. She sat down and talked to them. Bobby was so upset. She decided she was going to write a letter to the old gentleman, whose name she did not know, but called him Dear Friend. Dear Friend, see what it is in this paper. They say our father, he's a spy, but he isn't. We know he isn't. He's the kindest, most gentlest person in the world. Could you find out what's happened, please? And then let us know. And if you could find out what prison my father's in and get a letter to him, we'd really appreciate it. In those days, they didn't have telephones, and the only communication was via letter that could take weeks and weeks and weeks. Time passed. Nothing happened. Bobby missed her father so much. She used to sit on the top of the hill watching the trains go past, wishing that her dad was in there. Then, one late summer's day, Bobby found herself walking down to the train station. She just arrived there when the train had pulled into the platform. Only 3 people got out. An old lady with a hat, a grocer and his wife, and a third person. There, as the steam from the steam train parted, there was the unmistakable figure of her daddy. Oh, Daddy, my Daddy, said Bobby, and flung herself at him in a giant hug. I can't believe you're really here, she said, and they walked up the hill together. Go on, run ahead, he said. and tell everyone I'm home. He came to the garden path, his heart beating. Mum, Bobby, Peter and Philip were stood there. "Oh, my goodness me," said Mum. "You're back! You're home!" And all the children and wife ran to him. You see, he had been mistaken for somebody else. And the old gentleman, when he received the letter, investigated it and found out this miscarriage of justice and went and spoke to the police. And because this gentleman was a very famous gentleman, he was able to make sure that their father was free. Now, this story happened a long, long time ago, in about 1912, which is a long time, way, way ago. I hope you enjoyed it. Happy Book Day. Bye.
I'm reading my favourite poem from Commotion in the Ocean about penguins. We waddle about on our icebergs, which makes our feet slither and slide. And when we get close to the water, we leap with a splosh up the slide.
Hello, I would like to share my story with you. It's the tiger who came to tea. Here is a young girl called Sophie. She's having tea with her mother at the table. All of a sudden, she hears a at the door. Who could it possibly be? It can't be the milkman, and it can't be the grocer, and it can't be Daddy because he's got his key. I wonder who it could be. She opened the door, and there was a big, furry, stripy tiger. The tiger said, "Excuse me, can I come in? I'm very hungry." Sophie's mummy said, "Of course you can come in." So he came in and he sat at the table. Sophie was very excited. She made him cakes and sausage rolls, but he was still hungry. He drank from the teapot, and he ate all the biscuits and all the cake until there was nothing left on the table. So Sophie's mummy said, "Would you like a drink?" He drank all the tea. Sophie loved having the tiger for tea. It was a very exciting day. He ate all the supper that was cooking in the saucepan, and all the food in the fridge, and all the packets and tins in the cupboard. He was a very, very hungry tiger. And drank all the milk and all the orange juice and all of Daddy's beer and all the water in the tap. He was very thirsty. Then he said, "Thank you for a nice tea. I think I'd better go now." And off he went. Sophie's mummy said, "I don't know what to do. I've got nothing for Daddy's supper." He was very upset. Daddy wouldn't have anything. Sophie found that she couldn't have her bath because there was no water left. Just then, Sophie's daddy came home. "What's for tea?" He didn't believe that a tiger had been for tea. So they had to put on their coats and go to a cafe in her pyjamas. The street lamps were on because it was so dark outside. And then they had a lovely supper with sausage, chips and ice cream. And they also bought a very big tin of tiger food in case the tiger should come for tea again. But he never did. The end. I hope you enjoyed that story, Willesden Primary School. Can you guess who I am? Ho, 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 ho.
50 points from Gryffindor for your lateness, I think. And let me see. Yes, another 20 for your, muggle attire.
No.
You know, I don't believe that any house has ever been in negative figures this early in the term. We haven't even started pudding. You might have set a record, Potter. I suppose you wanted to make an entrance, did you? And with no flying car available, you decided that busting into the Great Hall during the feast ought to create a dramatic effect. Potter.
The highway rat was a body. The highway rat was a beast. He took what he wanted, he ate what he took. His life was one long feast. His teeth were sharp and yellow. His manners were rough and rude. The highway rat went riding along the highway and stealing the traveller's food.
Somebody Swallowed Stanley by Sarah Roberts. So I'm going to read the blurb. Stanley is no ordinary jellyfish. Most jellyfish have gangly dangly tentacles, but Stanley has 2 handles. Other jellyfish have a magical glow, but Stanley has stripes. A story by animal behaviourist and wildlife expert Sarah Roberts about the problems a simple plastic bag can create in the ocean.
Silly parents, silly teachers, and a very silly Prime Minister. Alfie Poppleton, real name Squeaky Squawker Red-Faced Splurt Bottom, has got his work cut out dealing with a set of very silly adults. Can Alfie get the town of Underpants and the rest of the country sorted out?
I Want to Be by Tony Ross. Now that little princess can use her potty, she decides it's time to grow up and be something. Her family and friends are eager to give her advice, but eventually she realises that she must decide for herself.